Members, welcome to the meeting. This is appointed time. We have a quorum. So I call this meeting to order. Let me invite the administration to come in. They will be joining us in discussing the first item. Members, please note that after the last meeting, the Secretariat issued an information paper relating to the proposed amendment to Schedule 2 to the Pesticides Ordinance. So please note that. Item 2, items for discussion at the next meeting. Please refer to the list of outstanding items for discussion and the list of follow-up actions provided by the Secretariat. At the first meeting, members proposed to discuss certain items. They are now included in the list, so please refer to the lists. I met with the Secretary for Environment and Ecology on the 6th of February to discuss the work plan of this session 2026. And the list of outstanding items has already included the suggestions from members. The next regular meeting will be held on the 17th of March, Tuesday at 4:30. The administration has proposed to discuss two items: Food Surveillance Program 2025 and combating illegal fishing. Any questions from members? Right, so be it. Next. Let's move on to the third item, allowing dogs in permitted restaurants. Right, just relax. I'm chairing this panel meeting, all right? So we'll hear from the Secretary, so please pay attention. After he's done so, the floor will be open for members to put questions. So be patient. And also, just to remind members that we cannot extend today's meeting because another meeting will be held right after hours, and that's a panel on security meeting. So please refrain from repeating questions already asked. And I'll now give the floor to Mr. Jie, Secretary. Good afternoon, Chair, members. We have many residents in Hong Kong keeping dogs, and they would like to relax the rules to allow dogs to enter food premises. Now, to actively respond to the public's aspirations, we propose to lift the restriction which has been in place for over 3 decades so that dog owners will be able to bring their dogs in food premises and share a meal with their owners. And this will also bring new business opportunities for the industry. Now, for the first batch of applications, we will start receiving them in the middle of this year, and we follow 4 governing principles in drawing up the framework. First, allowing restaurant operators and customers to have a choice. This is important. We receive voluntary applications from operators. As for consumers, likewise, they are free to choose whether to go to a restaurant that permits dogs. Now, as for the permitted restaurants, they are required to put up designated signage at a conspicuous place. This designated signage will be found on the FEHD's dedicated website, and there will also be clear distinction. The second principle is to make sure that safety of people and animals is put first, and we also allow the flexibility of the operation. Third, we want to minimize compliance costs for the trade, and for the new licensing conditions, they will come at a fee of $140. We don't believe the endorsement fee would put extra burden on the industry. The fourth principle is that we will take small steps for prudent and manageable implementation. That means we will launch the scheme in the first phase on a relatively small scale and in a prudent, manageable manner so as to allow society to adapt. And then we will fine-tune the scheme. In October, November last year, we held group consultation sessions with stakeholders of the industry. We garnered the general support. Now, before introducing this new measure, we will make sure that there is proper publicity and education. There will be a series of briefing sessions to help operators understand better the application procedures. I will now give the floor to the FEHD colleagues to introduce the initiative to you in greater detail with the aid of a PowerPoint and also the way forward after the first phase of implementation. And then we'll take views from members. Right, thank you, Mr. Ip. Right, I will brief members on the new measure to allow dogs to enter permitted food premises. The objective is to respond to the public's request and create more pet-friendly space for all, so that dog owners can have a choice in bringing their pets to restaurants, and this will also bring new business opportunities for the catering industry and the local economy in general. Now, there are a number of governing principles. The first one is to allow restaurant operators and customers to have a choice. The permitted restaurants will have to put up designated signage, and this is actually the template that I've brought along. The second point is we want to minimize compliance costs for the trade. It will not increase the compliance cost significantly, save for the $140 endorsement fee. This will not put extra burden on the trade. The third principle is that we ensure safety of people and animals, food safety and environmental hygiene remain our priority. Then meanwhile, we allow appropriate flexibility for restaurant operators. The fourth principle is that we take small steps for prudent and manageable implementation. The first phase will be implemented on a relatively small scale and in a prudent, manageable manner. And in the next phase, we will further fine-tune the initiative. As for the regulatory framework, dogs are only permitted into the permitted food premises upon application. We'll also stipulate that all dogs must be on a leash or are otherwise under control by an adult, and the leash should not exceed 1.5 meters in length, which must be securely held by an adult or tied to a fixture. As for known dangerous dogs and fighting dogs, they won't be allowed. And any contravention will attract a fine of $10,000. That's a level 3, as well as a daily fine of $300 and imprisonment for 3 months. Licensing conditions. To allow customers to make informed choices, designated signage will be put up at the permitted restaurants as required by the LVHD. As for food preparation, we'll make sure that there is a clear separation between food and utensils for people and those for dogs. There should be no cooking for dog food. No dogs are allowed to use the reusable utensils, and no dogs are allowed on dining tables. And in the event of fouling by dog excrement, the area must be closed off. It must be cleansed and disinfected immediately. There should also be, for rodent trapping or pest trap devices on food premises, they should be kept out of reach of dogs. And cooking or heating of food on dining tables is prohibited on the permitted food premises at any time. As for buffet area with food heating and reheating, it should be kept at least 3 meters away from the seating areas and dining tables, and measures should be taken to keep dogs out of such area. The FEHD will also compile a set of guidelines for reference by the restaurant operators on matters of their discretion and the key factors to be considered. The guidelines will also set out the responsibilities of customers. For restaurants, they have very different operational environment, with manpower arrangements being very different as well. For the first batch of application, we will set a quota of about 500 to 1,000. All restaurant licensees can, or restaurants with a full license may apply, except teppanyaki, hot pot restaurants, barbecue establishments, and we'll also allow e-applications. And then balloting will be conducted. If the application is approved, the licensee will be required to pay $140 of endorsement fees. The restaurants may decide to withdraw and exit from this endorsement arrangement. Now, for restaurants in breach of the licensing conditions, their endorsements may be cancelled as well. But the original restaurant license will not be affected. Last year, between October and November, we conducted small group consultations and we had the general support of the relevant stakeholders. And to allow the industry better prepare for the implementation, we're going to hold seminars for the industry. We will invite shopping mall operators and restaurants to the sessions to explain to them matters to note. We will also invite animal welfare organizations and NGOs to come along as well, and the guidelines will be distributed for their reference as well publicity and education. We will explain the relevant requirements, including licensing conditions and the provisions. They will also be published online. The list of permitted food premises will also be made available online for public inquiry. At the same time, we will prepare APIs on TVs and also on other social media platforms. The FEHD Clean and Hygiene Ambassador RTEC will also be part of the publicity campaign. We will table the amendments to CAP 132X to LegCo in the first quarter of this year. The first batch of permission will be granted by the middle of this year. As for the next phase, subject to smooth implementation of the first phase, and the second half of the year, we will roll out the second phase. That's all from me. Right, thank you. If you want to speak, please press the button. I see 12 members, in fact 13, including myself, Stephen Ho, Hong Kam In, Kitson Yang, Lee Kwong Yu, Ronick Chan, Chan Pok Chi, Mark Chong, Jovi Chan, Jonathan Leung, Scott, Elaine Chick, Christine Fong. I'll give each member 4 minutes question and answer, please. So we start with Mr. Stephen Ho. Right, thank you. I'd like to thank the government for creating a pet-friendly environment in Hong Kong. Now, not everyone has a pet. Not everyone is pet-friendly. This is not something that the government can singly change, and yet the government has rolled out this policy, taking prudent and manageable small steps. I think this is the shared objective. Now, we also have divergent views in this chamber. We propose setting out pilot areas or pilot districts, but we also welcome the government's proposed measure, taking an innovative approach. After reading this paper, I think you should explain clearly to the public that the restaurant owner or the restaurant operator will have to be very careful in deciding to apply for this permission, because after all they will be responsible. And I want to make sure that there is sufficient information for them to make an informed choice. Will they be capable of controlling the dogs in the environment? Will they be able to ensure food safety and hygiene? And will their staff be sufficiently trained to cope with emergencies? Guidelines should be provided. I think in terms of the definition of certain provisions, you need to make sure everyone understands. For example, not allowing dogs on the dining table. Do you mean the whole of the dog or just part of the dogs? And I think that there will be implementation issues. The second point is about safety. Of course, I see that you're going to conduct seminars, but more importantly, you need to make sure preventive actions are taken. Say, dogs should not be allowed to get in the way of the passage of food or the EVAs, because staff may not be used to having dogs in the restaurants. They may be tripped. They may fall. This could lead to further accidents. Now, you're not allowing hot pot restaurants or barbecue restaurants to apply for this permission. But in Hong Kong, we have other kinds of restaurants that I find not to be suitable for this permission, such as congee shops or shops selling soup. Even if the bowl is only 3/4 full, if a dog then suddenly barks, the staff might then tremble a bit, and then there'll be a the congee may spill. So can you explain how we can take preventive action?
Secretary, thank you, Mr. Stephen Ho, for your questions. I will talk about the principles, and I'll see if the departmental representative has anything to add. We do want to take small steps. people have different levels of understanding of dogs. For those who are not familiar or who are not confident, they do not need to make an application right away. They can look at how people are doing. They can glean from that experience. We will actually have a review every 6 months, and we will also review the effectiveness of the arrangements. We will also promulgate the guidelines. I think at the beginning, people don't have to fully rely on the guidelines just yet, because we will make changes to the guidelines as reviews go. As for whether dogs will climb onto the table, dog owners also have the responsibility to control their dogs. So they need to make sure their dogs are not climbing onto the tables. There will be some principles outlined in the guidelines, but because different restaurants have different circumstances, restaurants will have different arrangements based on their circumstances. Excuse me? What about my question on a country shop? I guess when there is time left in other questions, the Secretary can answer your question on this. Mr. Hong Kam-in. Allowing dogs to enter restaurants grants us new opportunities. I think the government's proposal is a low-cost proposal for the consideration of restaurants that in the end may boost other industries and sectors. I have many questions actually, but due to time constraints, I will focus on the aspect of insurance. I believe there is a concern. You talked about consulting the Federation of Insurers. Can we ask restaurants mandatorily to purchase insurance so that when dogs bite other patrons or cause food to have spilled causing incidents, there can be insurance for such incidents? Secretary. I actually talked about this earlier. Dog owners have the responsibility to control their dogs. So some of the requirements, we will put it in the laws. The dogs, for example, would have to be leashed under certain circumstances so as to prevent dogs from biting other people or out of control. So under any circumstance, dog owners would have the responsibility to control dogs. We have consulted the Federation of Insurers, and we do understand that insurance can be taken out. As for whether restaurants have to take out insurance, we currently leave the decision to restaurants. If they think they need insurance, they can take out insurance. That's what we learned. Mr. Hong Kam-in. I have a second question. Unfortunately, the Secretary's reply is contrary to what I'm thinking. When pet owners want to bring their dogs to restaurants in shopping malls, but then the dogs foul on their way, so they're just in the shopping mall but not in the restaurant. Who has the responsibility on this? Secretary. We have many shopping malls that are pet-friendly malls already. So when pets foul in the shopping malls, there are already existing arrangements that can deal with that. Some charges may be needed to be paid, but then we'll actually leave the decision on charging fees to the shopping malls. Mr. Hong Kam-in, you still have some time left? All right. So basically, the government is not doing anything. They will just leave it to the stakeholders, the shopping mall owners, those in the sector to work it out, basically. All right, I have another question. As for the dangerous dogs, Will there be a specific inquiry system for employees to look up such dangerous dogs, because they can't really distinguish whether the dogs are dangerous dogs right away, right? Secretary, let me respond to what you said earlier. We would have some license conditions. As for shopping malls already have existing arrangements, so we don't want to intervene in that regard. As for dangerous dogs, based on existing laws, they have to wear certain identification, so one should easily be able to identify dangerous dogs. Thank you, Mr. Yang Wing-kit. I would first like to thank the Bureau for heeding the feedback of many electrical members, because we were working hard to push for this last year. However, we do have some suggestions that the administration should take note of. We have shops of different sizes. How many dogs should be allowed? I think you should at least give some criteria for consideration in the guidelines, because if the space is small, if they admit many dogs, it is not ideal. I hope that there can be some guidance in the guidelines. As for how many dogs can one bring, I don't think I heard any such information in your presentation. Sometimes people want to bring 5 or 6 dogs on their own. I hope that this can be talked about in the guidelines for restaurants, because if one can bring an infinite amount of dogs, it is not good for other patrons. Right now you have a quota number of 500 to 1,000. Last year, we conducted a survey. There were many restaurants who wanted to admit dogs, and we actually surveyed 200 restaurants. With 500 to 1,000 quotas, I hope that you take a more relaxed approach with the granting of quotas. You said you would start granting quotas in the middle of this year. When will you conduct a review? You talked about taking small steps, but we have to conduct reviews in a timely manner to review the effectiveness of the arrangements. What is the Secretary's plan on this? As for penalties, you talked about the level of penalty being the same as before. Right now, dogs are not allowed in restaurants at all. I think with one blatantly omitting such requirements, the existing penalty level works. But then in future, there may be misunderstanding and people bring dogs to restaurants when they're not supposed to. Can we have a lesser penalty for relevant offenses in future, so as to promote the bringing of dogs to restaurants? Secretary, I later will ask my colleague to talk about the guidelines. As for taking small steps, we do see many restaurants expressing interest, but we want restaurants, or we expect restaurants to want to see how people are doing before they apply. And every 6 months, we will invite applications. Even if restaurants can't apply successfully in the first round, they should be able to apply in the second round. We will conduct reviews. At the beginning, we will be already looking at the implementation, and we will continue to monitor the situation to see if we need to make changes in any regard. I will now ask my colleague to answer the question on the guidelines. Yes, Director. Thank you. Right now, our plan is to not have hard figures for each restaurant, how many dogs each patron can bring, because different restaurants have different considerations. They have different sizes, they have different number of staff members, their layout may be different. But as said earlier, we will have guidelines where we will promulgate certain directions for the consideration of restaurants. Say whether they would need to restrict the number of dogs permitted for each patron and what other factors they may have to consider. This will include in the guidelines, and in order to facilitate the trade, we will very early on brief applicants on the licensing conditions that they should comply with. Thank you. Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. I very much welcome the proposals of the administration. I have some minor questions. About the identification of known dangerous dogs, basically the secretary said they can be identified perhaps by a color. But if indeed such dogs have entered restaurants, who will have the responsibility? Is it dog owners? If it's dog owners, who is going to enforce against it? Or if it's going to be restaurants, will we provide suitable education to restaurant stakeholders so that they can enforce against it in future? As for guidelines, I want to ask if the administration would consider having more detailed conditions, for example, having pet-only zones to mitigate health hazards. We also want to make sure there are no unfortunate incidents between children and dogs. Will there be some sort of restrictions on that? Secretary, I will let the director answer the question about guidelines. We will include the requirement against bringing dangerous dogs into restaurants in the laws. Dog owners and restaurants alike may be held accountable. We will look at the actual circumstances in prosecution, but we cannot have one party shifting the blame fully onto another party. Anyway, we believe prudence should be exercised. As for education, we did talk about earlier some talks will be held. We will also have experience sharing sessions. We will also have video clips that are available online so that both online and offline people can obtain relevant information. I will now ask the director to answer the question on the guidelines. Thank you. For eating areas, when restaurants apply for endorsements, we will look at the whole restaurant. We will consider the whole restaurant to be available to pets. But if certain restaurants want to have pet-only zones with their own delineation, we would allow it. We want to have the endorsement so as to inform the public that the particular restaurant is admitting dogs. That's it from us. Thank you.
Right. Just to add another point, I see that it's a level 3 fine, $10,000. We need to be very careful because earlier another law was passed and members of the public panicked. In the end, we called a halt to that piece of legislation. Now we're talking about a fine of $10,000. You need to be careful. Right. This is not particularly heavy in terms of the level of penalty, and the court will also have regard to the circumstances in metering out the penalty. Next, Mr. Ronnie Chan. Well, as somebody who keeps a pet, of course, I welcome the government's new initiative. Pet owners will be able to bring their dogs to restaurants together. This will also bring vibrancy to the industry, but we need to cater for those who are afraid of cats and dogs. So my first question is this. You will require designated signage to be displayed at the entrance of food premises. I want to know how big this signage is. Is it really that anyone can see it? Because we have patrons who are afraid of cats and dogs at the time of entry. They may not have noticed the designated signage. And then all of a sudden, what happens if cats and dogs start to appear in the restaurant? I want to make sure that the signage is big enough and conspicuous enough. Second point, you say that the restaurant operators as well as the customers will be responsible for keeping the dogs under control, as pointed out in paragraph 5. And you also issue guidelines, provide support. At the same time, dog owners must also be responsible when they bring their dogs into the restaurant. What if dogs start the fight in the restaurant? Who will be responsible? And also paragraph 16, for repeated breach of the legislation or the licensing conditions, the permission will be cancelled. But you have not specifically state how many breaches do you regard as repeated breach. And also, is there any avenue for complaint? What if a restaurant contravenes the licensing conditions repeatedly? Is there a way for complaints to be made, for the permission to be revoked? Secretary. Well, let's take a look at the signage. Don't you think this is clear enough? Clear enough, right? It's going to be put at the entry of the food premises, on either side or both. Well, let's see if you're happy with it. If not, we can make it larger. Will there be specifications, the measurements set out? Yes, they will be stipulated in the licensing conditions, and if need be, we can further make the signage bigger. Now, about the guidelines. We plan to work with some groups, and we'll also mount publicity and education targeting pet owners, such as matters they should note when they bring their pets to restaurants, the etiquette, so on and so forth. You mentioned cancelling the license. Now, say within a year, if there are 3 complaints received, then we will consider cancelling the endorsement, so as to make sure that operators will manage their premises properly. As for complaints, let's go for the usual avenue, 1823. Next, Mr. Chan Pok-chi. Thank you, Chair. Now, the focus is voluntary application as well as choice for both the restaurant operator and the customer. Now, we need to make full preparation for smooth implementation of this new initiative. This is crucial. Secretary just now mentioned seminars, training, and also guidelines on good practices and behavior. So how many seminars will be held? Is it online, offline? Is it for all? And about the set of guidelines on good practices and behavior, when will they be published so that people can start preparation and make assessment as early as possible? Now, on implementation, how frequent will inspections, assessments be done? And will there be a review 6 months on? Secretary, about the implementation details, I'll give the floor to the Director. Thank you. On publicity and education, we take a 2-prong approach. On specific provisions of the initiative and implementation details, we will first prepare, say, API to be aired on TV, and we'll also provide information online. And by doing so, members of the public and the industry will be clear about the implementation details. At the same time, we will also target the industry. We will hold seminars to explain to stakeholders the application procedures and also the additional licensing conditions. As mentioned by the Secretary, apart from the industry, which we target, we will also brief frontline staff in restaurants who will be handling the pets. So we will work with different organizations in this regard. Mr. Chen asked about exactly the number of seminars, and that depends on the number of applicants. Inspections. Now, let me say a few words on this. As we implement the arrangement, in the initial period, dedicated teams will visit different restaurants to check for compliance. So that's a kind of inspection. We regard this as the transitional period. For those getting the endorsement, we will provide guidance to help them meet the licensing conditions. But when it comes to safety, of course, if any breach is found during inspection, we will very stringently enforce the law. Now, for interested applicants, we will arrange for them to attend a seminar so that they are fully aware of the licensing conditions. Mr. Mark Chong. Thank you, Chair. Now, if you can iron out the details, Secretary will definitely support you. The first point is this. I understand you've set a quota. What if the restaurants having obtained the endorsement fail to allow dogs in? How will you handle the matter? Second, now you're going to ban known dangerous dogs and fighting dogs from entering the restaurants, but at the same time, we also have some large dogs. And if people take large dogs to restaurants and occupying a lot of space, do you think this will be appropriate? Do you think this is appropriate? And also paragraph 8, in the event of fouling, the area must be thoroughly cleansed and disinfected immediately, as in paragraph 8. Is that the responsibility of the restaurant operator or the dog owner? And what if it's not thoroughly cleansed? Will there be a mandatory cleansing exercise required? The fourth point is, for the first batch, 500 to 1,000 quotas will be provided. It will be done by balloting. In all fairness, you're taking small steps, but I think that you should focus on some pilot districts such as Kai Tak, Sai Kung, Stanley, Tseung Kwan O. If we take small steps, we can be able, and in those more popular areas, we'll be able to gauge the result before we further extend the initiative to the whole territory. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Zhang, for your comments. Now, in drawing up this proposal, we discussed with various stakeholders. We believe it would be more appropriate not to pick pilot districts. It should be for for the restaurants themselves to have regard to their own circumstances in applying for this endorsement. So, for restaurants which are not very familiar with the practice, they may wish to wait for the next phase so that they can adopt a wait-and-see attitude. We don't want to select pilot districts. Now, about the permitted food premises not allowing dogs in, well, they have the permission, but it's not compulsory that they must allow dogs in. They must they may need time to prepare for the new arrangement, so it's up to the restaurants to decide when they allow dogs in. Our job is to grant permissions. We don't impose a rigid rule on the time frame within which the restaurants must allow dogs in. About cleanliness, in terms of safety, it's of course the dog owner's responsibility to keep the dog under control. For cleanliness, of course, it's for the restaurant to make sure that the premises are clean. Now, what measures should the restaurant adopt to ensure cleanliness is for them to decide. As I said, for shopping malls, some of them do help clean up the place, and the shopping malls will then impose a charge. So the restaurants may have regard to their own circumstances. Size of dogs. The first requirement is for dog owners to keep the dog under control. The second point is that the dogs must be on a leash. At this stage, we believe that these requirements should be sufficient, and we will conduct evaluation and see if it should be fine-tuned. Now, of course, again, the restaurants can have regard to their own circumstances to decide whether large dogs should be allowed in or whether they should be kept out. The restaurants themselves may also impose additional rules. I'm sorry, Mr. Zhang, your time is up. We cannot extend the meeting today. Please follow up on another occasion. Next, Ms. Jovi Chan. Thank you, Chair. Now, Pet Friendly is a really good initiative. My constituency is in Chunwan, Yulai. It's apart from Sai Kung district, I'd say that this is also a district with many pet owners. But we need to be careful when it comes to introducing this new initiative. Not everyone is used to being around animals. So my question is on paragraph 16. For repeated breach of additional licensing conditions, the permission may be cancelled, and that the food premises will not be allowed to apply for another permission for 1 year. I call this a record of breach. And will this record be kept in file? And if so, how will the FEHD identify the non-compliant restaurants? And how will the public be able to find out about it? These are implementation details I'd like to know. Now, the other point is one from the labor sector's perspective. That is protection for restaurant staff. Now, another member already asked a question on insurance. For labor insurance, I want to know whether new guidelines will be promulgated. Some restaurant staffers are not good at looking after dogs or being with dogs. So what protection will be provided to staffers? Will there be dedicated training? Secretary, thank you for the question. As mentioned, we will enforce the licensing conditions of the permitted food premises. If there are 3 breaches within 12 months, we will cancel this permission to allow dogs to enter the food premises. However, the restaurant itself can continue to operate. We're not revoking the restaurant license. And by canceling the endorsement, they will have to take down the signage, and that dogs will not be allowed in. And I think it will be easy for members of the public to identify. As for the labor issue you mentioned, restaurants are required to take out labor insurance policies for their staffers. And then the insurers will also remind the restaurant the equipment and facilities to be provided in the restaurant, and also the insurers will have regard to the situation in adjusting the premium.
公嗰度係咪你想？
Well, did you want to have the Secretary answer your question on employees? Yes. I also want to ask if there are non-compliances. Will there be a system where people can find out about such information? I will perhaps ask the director to answer the relevant questions. Ms. Chen asked about how to publicize non-compliance. We do have relevant records of non-compliance. If a restaurant has breached 3 times relevant conditions, we will cancel the permission. So we will definitely have such records. As for whether restaurants are allowed to have dogs inside, if we have canceled their permission, the restaurant would no longer be on that list. Mr. Jonathan Leung. Thank you, Chair. As more citizens keep pets, specifically dogs, the government has been promoting pet friendliness. And I think if it boosts the economy, it is worth it to relax the restrictions, and I very much support the development of pet economy. I have some questions, however. To allow dogs in restaurants, there are some measures that people have to comply with certain requirements. We have restaurants that have different capacities, so they may be able to admit different types of dogs or different numbers of dogs. I asked many, and most people don't know that restaurants can set their additional rules. I am worried in future disputes may arise because people don't know restaurants can set additional rules. So can the administration promote the fact that restaurants can set their own house rules? Or we can perhaps encourage restaurants to put their house rules outside restaurants for people to know. And actually, we have many restaurant stakeholders asking us that they thought if they do not allow pets during certain hours, they do not have to comply with the relevant requirements during those hours. But it's not the case, right? So you should perhaps publicize this with the trade. And you have to make clear that, for example, for the tea warmer requirement, it would apply at all times with no fire being allowed in restaurants. I also want to ask, you only are granting 500 to 1,000 quotas. I understand the government's considerations for setting this number, but in future, if we want more, is it easy for the administration to increase the number of quotas? Thank you. Secretary, as I said earlier, we will invite applications every 6 months. If there is overwhelming interest, if people can't apply in the first round, they only have to wait 6 months. I believe the demand is easy to deal with, but honestly, my projection is that many restaurant owners will try to look at the reaction before they apply for the endorsement in the first round. These are new arrangements, and restaurants can set their own house rules. And dog owners may not be aware of this. I believe some time may be needed for teething, but it's also about publicity. I understand that. So the director already said for potential applicants, we will hold some briefings. We will also have experience sharing sessions, and such information is available both offline and online so that not only the restaurant owners but also the staff members can watch these. And I think in the end we still need some time for adjustment. So in the beginning we would take an approach of education and publicity mainly. However, for dogs being leashed such safety requirements, we will take a more stringent approach in enforcement. As for the rest, we will take an advised approach. Thank you. Mr. Lam and Kwong, I would like to thank the administration for making relevant proposals to develop pet economy. I also support the government's stance that we should take small steps to strike a balance between different groups of citizens. I want to ask if the administration will have some internal KPIs for assessment, for example, complaint figures, incident figures. Would you consider having voluntary reports so you may know when there are complaints that there is non-compliance with endorsement conditions? But then when dogs do something, it may not be non-compliance, but they probably run around or they hit something, making something drop. Can we also collect relevant data and analyze such data? If we have no such incidents, then you can perhaps expedite your progress. Can you also do data analyses in the sense that if you see there are many pet-friendly restaurants clustering in certain areas, you can coordinate with other departments to have more pet facilities, for example, having more dog latrines, so that we can create small dog-friendly communities to boost the economy further. I am worried about your manpower. There is much to do: publicity, education, patrols, inspections, handling complaints, as well as data analyses. Do you have enough manpower to do all that? Thank you. Secretary, I will let the director answer the various questions on detailed implementation. I would just like to say this. We have seen greater acceptance of pet inclusiveness, and we do have more facilities that are pet inclusive or are specifically for pets. The government will take a pragmatic approach in the extension and expansion of such facilities. I'll let the director answer the questions. Thank you, Chair. We can perhaps provide relevant information to Mr. Leung in due course. In future, in implementation, we will take a dynamic approach in reviews. In fact, before the launch of the arrangements, we would be already gauging feedback when we accept applications. And once we have implemented the arrangements, we will definitely try to collect data and analyze data, for example, relating to complaints or where the restaurants are. In implementation, we would also try to collect feedback from restaurants and customers. As I said earlier, we'll try to take a dynamic approach in the collection of feedback, and we will consider such feedback in implementation. As for dog facilities, we have dog lavatories in different places. We also have dog excreta collection bins. With the implementation of dog-friendly restaurant arrangements, there may not be a significant increase in demand in other dog facilities, but especially for these two, we will try to monitor the situation to make sure there is adequate provision. We do thank the members' concern on manpower. We will see if there is a need to increase manpower. At least at the beginning of the implementation of such arrangements, we will have dedicated teams going to different restaurants to promote the relevant requirements as well as to ensure compliance of relevant licensing conditions. Ms. Christine Fong. As a dog owner, I support pet inclusiveness in the community, and I welcome the administration setting the number of quotas at 500 to 1,000. And based on actual circumstances, the government is going to make enhancements and move to the next step. I appreciate that. I have some concerns received from patrons as well as pet owners and restaurant stakeholders. First, for pet excreta, who's going to deal with that? Will that affect food safety? Will you ask dogs to be wearing diapers so as to minimize dispute between restaurant patrons and frontline workers at restaurants? So the restaurants cannot be preparing the dog food. If dog owners bring their own food, will there be hygiene issues? Sometimes when dogs see each other, they will bark at each other or they will be affected somehow. Will there be guidelines for restaurants, for example, asking the dog owners to wear muzzles? Will you also perhaps suggest restaurants to have dedicated staff members who can work with pets? We actually had during the pandemic some restaurants that have specific work as to cleaning tables. So would the administration consider including this direction in the guidelines? Thank you. Secretary, thank you, Ms. Fong, for your questions. I said earlier the responsibility to maintain hygiene in the restaurant would be the restaurants. But as we said earlier, we would hold briefings with potential applicants as well as dog owners for publicity and education. If pet owners want to have good management of their dogs and prevent hygiene incidents similar to this from happening, they can perhaps do more. As for whether dogs need their own diapers, it really depends on the conditions of the dogs. Some dogs may actually need to wear diapers, but I think in general we do not need to make this into a mandatory requirement because most dogs should be able to control themselves unless they are ill. So we ask pet owners to review their dogs' conditions to see if their dogs need to wear diapers. The question on food. Right. Well, food suitable for human consumption may not be suitable for the consumption of dogs. We do not suggest dog owners feeding food from the restaurant to their dogs. We will not prohibit this specifically, but I think dog owners know that it can be very risky. And I would say that dog owners would have the responsibility to take such risks. We believe at this stage we are striking a balance by having dogs on leash, allowing them to move around suitably and to ensure safety. As for in future whether we need more stringent requirements, we will conduct a review in due course. Right now, we do not think it should be made mandatory that dogs wear muzzles. As for whether we should have dedicated staff members at restaurants that take care of pets, I think this is a good idea. At the current stage, I think we should review the situation. We do not plan to make it a specific licensing condition, but perhaps in the guidelines on good practices and behavior, we can have staff members take training to take care of pets.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Judy Chan. Thank you, Chair. I thank the Secretary and his team for heeding the views of members and also aspirations of the public. You have decided to relax the rules to bring new business opportunities to the sector. I have two questions. First, about the licensing procedures. It's common knowledge that the application for a restaurant license is cumbersome. It takes a very long time to process the application. I understand this arrangement will come in the form of an endorsement. The applicant will be charged $140. On top of that, will you conduct inspection of the premises? How long will it take for you to process the application? And also paragraph 13. I see that to provide a level playing field, for the first batch, 500 to 1,000 applications would be processed. That's roughly 3 to 5% of restaurants in Hong Kong. Now, I don't agree with other members' suggestions that we should pick pilot districts first. When it comes to new business opportunities, you should indeed make sure that there is fairness for restaurants in the whole of Hong Kong. Now, after relaxing the rules, we can imagine that more dog owners will be taking their dogs out, but at the same time, there are more frequent complaints about poor hygiene in the streets. So at the same time, we want to mount publicity so as to educate dog owners about the importance of keeping the place clean. Now, I agree with other members' analysis. I mean, in fact, there is a very popular restaurant booking platform in Hong Kong. Is widely used by people in Hong Kong. And what about requiring the dog owners to make a booking before they bring the dogs to the restaurants? And we can also ask the platform to share data with us for analysis. Secretary, now these are operational details. I will invite the director to elaborate on them. About the licensing procedures, as I explained, these restaurants may already have obtained full licenses. They just need to apply for an endorsement. So, balloting will be conducted, and restaurants will be given a quota for endorsement to the licenses. I think it would take 2 to 3 weeks for us to approve the endorsement and impose licensing conditions. Now, the next question is whether inspection will be conducted after granting endorsement. As I already answered in the initial period, we will allow for the transitional period to be put in place, and during inspection, we will advise the applicant and the licensees instead of enforcing the law. At the same time, about data, I think this is a very good suggestion. We'll see if there are other avenues for data collection. The important thing is for us to get data for analysis to help us with the way forward in terms of, say, the number of endorsements and additional licensing conditions. Upon data analysis, we will fine-tune these details, selecting pilot districts. Now, our approach is to give a quota of 500 to 1,000 to restaurants across the territory, except hot pot restaurants and barbecue shops. all restaurants are eligible. In particular districts, restaurants may be more interested in applying for the endorsement. As such, there'll be more applications coming in from these districts, more chances of being granted an endorsement. Don't think at this stage we need to separate different districts when it comes to allocation of quota. Mr. Perry, you. Chair, I welcome this new arrangement of allowing dogs to enter permitted food premises. It shows that the government is keeping up with the times by relaxing this rule which has been in place for 30 years so that the catering industry can be given new business opportunities against this very difficult environment. I also welcome the Secretary for introducing this measure to us. We have had a very good dialogue. The hotel and catering industries welcome this new arrangement. Now my question is this. For the first phase, you give a quota of 500 to 1,000, that's 3 to 5% of all restaurants in Hong Kong. Have you conducted any questionnaire survey? Have you conducted any market sounding to see how many restaurants would be interested? Or do you just think that 3 to 5% would be an appropriate range? Now, I'm more familiar with the hotel sector. There is one restaurant that covers different eateries in the hotel. So for these establishments, will they only need to apply one endorsement per license? Or will there be specific conditions allowing dogs to enter, say, a Western diner but not a cafe? Secretary, about the quota of 500 to 1,000, before we floated this number, we talked to the industries. But nobody could come up with an accurate figure. But we're able to give an estimate. For the first phase, it's just a small quota of 500 to 1,000. Is to be implemented on a small scale, but in 6 months we will have another round of application. We want to take small and prudent steps, but we will do it more frequently. We believe interested restaurants will be able to apply under this pragmatic approach. Right, for the second question, I'll give the floor to the director. Thank you. About 500 to 1,000. This is the quota we have provided, and we consider each licensee a single unit. And we'll also grant endorsements per license. For restaurants or the licensee you mentioned, if there is a need to separate an area that to separate an area from the rest that prohibits dogs in, we do allow them to do so. So in other words, this licensee may have a number of different eating establishments, and it's up to the licensee to decide which of these establishments will they accept dogs. In principle, yes. They can draw up house rules in deciding the areas in which dogs can come in, or the hours in which dogs can come in. These will be put in the guidelines on good practices and behavior. Now, I'd like to supplement. For licenses with an endorsement, designated signage will have to be displayed. But specifically for the area inside, they are free to set aside any area to stop dogs from going in. Mr. Peter Shiu. It is the tenet of this government to take forward reforms, and this is a very good direction. We have low birth rate in Hong Kong and more pet owners. Pet owners would like to bring their pets out. They need a place together. It's been the aspiration of these pet owners over the years. It's also been something that restaurant operators have looked forward to because of the business opportunities. In the past, the policy did not allow this to happen. After rounds of consultation, this arrangement is now being introduced. I think that the government is meeting people's expectations. So I think it's really good. I do have two questions. What happens if two dogs in the permitted food premises start to fight? It may start off well, but then they may be fighting each other. There might be injuries. So where does the responsibility lie? In terms of insurance, will anyone be held responsible? Now, about shopping malls with outside areas, will there be further relaxation when it comes to shaded areas? Will you allow the canopies to be extended so as to provide shelter against rain or the sun? Secretary. As I explained, the dog owner is definitely responsible for the dog's behavior. If the dog bites someone or if the dog hurts another dog, then definitely it's for the dog owner to keep his own dog under control. As for the specific circumstances, we'll need to consider further. The principle is for the dog owner to keep their own dog under control. It's not for the restaurant operator to do so. It's the same as the dog biting someone in a public place. If it happens in a restaurant, the dog owner is still responsible, not the restaurant operator. And will definitely mount publicity and education to make it clear to dog owners that the dog owner is still required to keep the dog under control when they bring the dogs into permitted food premises. Director, that's a very good suggestion. As for the guidelines on good practices and behavior, we'll definitely consider, instead of introducing rigid requirements, introducing these provisions in the guidelines for consideration by the restaurant. I'll be the last one to speak on this topic. I'd like to show my appreciation for the Bureau in heeding our views and relaxing this rule, which has been in place for over 30 years. Secretary and the director, as well as the whole team, had a lot of discussions with different sectors, including the catering, insurance sectors, as well as LegCo members. My suggestion is to take even smaller steps. Now, you've made it clear in the paper that hot pot and barbecue restaurants will not be eligible. And then, according to the paper, for a buffet area with food heating, reheating, they should be kept at least 3 meters away from the seating areas or dining tables. Can you take it further? Because some restaurants may be really tiny, and that some other members said the dogs may roam free in the aisle or in the EVA. So if you can be as specific as to say at least 3 meters away from the seating areas, dining tables, you might as well stipulate the size of restaurants as well. Imagine if the dog lies right at the aisle, it may block the passageway for the staff. This is not desirable. So in processing the applications, you should make sure that there is sufficient space. So I think you should do this extra step. The second point is this. I support this legislative amendment. Now it says allowing dogs to enter permitted food premises. In fact, originally it's any kind of animal. I mean, if it's just dogs, it might be about rabies. If it's not just about dogs, then people can bring in lizards, tortoise, parrots. So for different kinds of animals, how do you strike this balance? Third point, we need to consider the development of the local economy in the whole area, not just the restaurant. Because if you bring in the dogs, you need space for people to walk their dogs.
Thank you, Chair, for asking us to move even slower than taking small steps. I think we have the same general direction. As the chairman said, we have already barred some restaurants from applying. As for whether there are some circumstances of restaurants that would make us reject their applications, we will go on a case-by-case basis and we will try to strike a balance. Different restaurants operate differently. So it's hard for us to say if a restaurant of a certain size, we should reject the application right away. But those we consider non-negotiable, such as restaurants that are hot pot restaurants or barbecue restaurants, we are already barring them from applying. We also ask for a buffet area with food heating or reheating to be at least 3 meters away from the seating areas and dining tables. We will try to strike a balance as much as possible. As for whether we should develop communities, I believe with developments in society, we should see more of such. But as some members said before, there are citizens that are not used to this. They may even be scared of pets. So there is a process. But I think you can see the government's general direction is to promote pet inclusiveness. Thank you. The Secretary and his team answered questions from 15 members. As many people are concerned about this, perhaps we can follow this up on other occasions. Due to time constraints, we have to move on to the discussion of the next agenda item. Agenda item number 4, enhancing facilities and hygiene of public toilets. The background brief and paper provided by the administration have been circulated among members. I will now ask the relevant team to come inside the conference room. Just like earlier, after a presentation has been given by the Undersecretary and her team, I will open the floor for questions. Undersecretary, when you're ready. Undersecretary, we actually have another meeting at this conference room later. Please be brief in your presentation. Sure. Thank you, Chair. take a multi-pronged approach in enhancing public toilet services to provide a better experience to users. Right now, the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department manages over 810 public toilets. The FAHD adopts a strategy of enhancing facilities, making use of technology, and enhancing management and publicity and education with the enhancement of public toilets. In enhancing hardware since 2019, the enhanced toilet refurbishment program has commenced refurbishment and enhancement works for many toilets in 2028. Before that, we will have works commenced for another 200 public toilets. We have already 110 public toilets that have completed such works earlier that had works commenced in 2019. As for application of technology, we make use of smart equipment and systems such as air purification system to remove odor as much as possible and to make toilets cleaner. We also have effective surveillance and operation monitoring devices to monitor the operations of equipment in public toilets. We also have a fall detection system in accessible toilets so that a warning can be made when users have not had activity in public toilets for long. We also have eco toilets for places that do not have public sewerage system. We also have tailor-made smart facilities for public toilets. We have, for example, odor detecting equipment to monitor in real time whether concentration of certain substances is over a certain range, and cleaning can be arranged right away if that is the case. With the enhancement of management, we are making use of the minor works order record system so that we make use of mobile applications to follow up on orders right away. We also take an information-oriented approach with the enhancement of facilities and services. We now have dedicated contracts for contractors, and we also provide additional training to toilet attendants. As for publicity and education, we make use of different channels such as newspaper and social media to ask for people to cherish the facilities of public toilets and maintain hygiene in public toilets. We also have an award presentation ceremony for toilet attendants to enhance public awareness as well as to enhance service standards of toilet attendants. We also try to make use of technology and different measures so as to enhance public toilet services further. I will now ask my colleague to give a PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll take questions from members. Thank you, Chair, members. I will now give a presentation on enhancing public toilet services and relevant measures in optimization of management of public toilets. The goal is to enhance public toilet management and hygiene standards to provide a good experience for citizens and visitors. We take a multi-pronged approach covering 4 areas. 1, we make use of application. We apply new technologies to have smart equipment to enhance management efficiency. We have improved contract mode and enhanced training for staffers. We have also been actively taking forward the refurbishment program so that we have great designs for public toilets as well as smart facilities. 4, we have public education for the 812 public toilets managed by the FEHD. They are available all day and they are cleaned at least twice a day. On application of technology, you can see the picture on the left. This is an odor detection device. When the concentration of odor exceeds a certain range, a message will be sent automatically to management personnel to arrange for cleansing services to be undertaken. So we have taken a proactive management approach. We also have a user feedback system. In 2025, we have received feedback 25,000 of them, and such feedback is used for formulating targeted improvement measures. On the odor issue, we make use of two new technologies. The first one is nanotechnology in oxidation, and we also have the nanoplasma-driven catalysis air purification technology. These two kinds of technology are being used in public toilets at tourist spots and those with high utilization rates to decompose odor-causing substances and to improve air quality. We have installed about 280 sets of them. We also are making use of nanotechnology in flushing system to prevent biofilms from forming. We are testing such technology in 4 public toilets. In future, we will try to extend the arrangements to other public toilets. In April 2025, we have introduced the adenosine triphosphate luminometer to detect organic contaminants on environmental surfaces. For example, surfaces that are frequently touched in public toilets, and in cases of non-compliance, staff members can clean those surfaces right away. We also have sensors installed in accessible toilets. If users have fallen down or they have remained motionless for too long, the alarm will be triggered. The AMSD will install the system in 40 other accessible toilets. For remote areas where there are no public sewage systems, we have introduced the solar-powered EcoSmart toilets. A toilet is in a container-style design and is controlled by an integrated smart system on solar energy. We have the first toilet introduced in Lok Ma Chau, and we will try to provide EcoSmart toilets in 3 other locations in the first quarter of this year. We are actively taking forward the enhanced refurbishment program for public toilets. At the end of 2025, we have already commenced works for 480 public toilets. That is 60% of the public toilets. We have completed works for over 200 toilets, and we plan to commence the works for the 200 remaining ones before the end of 2028. We are also taking forward the refurbishment works or enhancement works for toilets in public toilets, and we expect to complete such before mid-2027. As for enhancing the management mode, we believe in quality management, and we now have dedicated contracts to enhance professionalism. We have over 1,500 toilet attendants completing the recognized training course, and we now have toilet attendant rooms or resting places for all public toilets that have toilet attendants stationed. And you can see in the picture there are ventilation facilities, storage cabinets, table, and a chair in toilet attendant rooms. We also have, for the minor works system, in 2025, completing over 26,000 orders, and most of the orders were completed in time.
Finally, public education and commendation for our staff. Now, in about 200 toilets, we installed the broadcasting system to promote audio messages. We also have a commendation scheme to show appreciation for the outstanding toilet attendant. And this helps recognize the outstanding attendants for their exceptional performance. It also sets an example for staff and also to raise public awareness. All in all, we will continue to deploy technology, enhance facilities, refurbish toilets, and strengthen publicity and public education to enhance the service quality of public toilets. That's all from me. We welcome views. Members, if you want to speak, please press the request to speak button. 6 members have indicated they wish to speak. 3 minutes question and answer for each. Kitson Yang, Chan Pao Chi, Christine Fong, Peter Shill, Perry Yu, Ronnie Chen. Mr. Kitson Yang will kick off. Thank you, Chair. I support public toilet refurbishment. I think we have been doing a good job. On a regular basis, we check the conditions of public toilets. Say for Kowloon Central, I say that the public toilets are usually very clean. Now, when it comes to public toilet in public markets, I hope you will walk the extra mile because usually in public markets, the public toilets tend to be less than perfect because the floor is always wet. Perhaps you can install floor blow dryers to keep the floor dry. The other hotspot is hiking trails. Nowadays, there are tourist attractions. Now, you just mentioned a solar-powered smart toilet system in Lok Ma Chau. This is very good because in rural areas, I see usually mobile toilets, and that's the blue box, and it's not ideal. For this new facility in Lok Ma Chau, I think you can further extend the test to other areas so as to lift our profile among tourists. And if you have data, you can review the situation and install similar toilets along hiking trails, as long as it's possible. And if it's possible, you should install more such toilets at tourist attractions. Right, 2 points, as I heard, for public toilets in public markets. I think you're referring to the FEHD markets. In fact, we explained the situation in the paper. Resources are allocated to enhance the public toilets in public markets, and there are 44 of them. As of December last year, 13 toilets have completed the facelift, 13 toilets are underway, and for the rest, and that's 18 of them, the enhancement works will be completed by the middle of 2027. Dry floor is, of course, one of the indicators of cleanliness. We will make use of blow dryers as well as relying on the efforts of toilet attendants in mopping the floor. And if need be, we'll further check the public markets and their toilets. The next point is about tourist hotspots and the toilet facilities, such as country parks. The AFCD maintains flush toilets as well as mobile toilets. The mobile toilets nowadays come with solar panels so that there is electricity for lighting and for flushing. So it's much better than the mobile latrines in the past. Now, in fact, we have secured resources from 2026 to 2028. 5 new smart toilets and as well as 6 existing toilets will undergo enhancement, and they will become smart toilets in country parks. During the Chinese New Year, we also introduced measures such as the Hampton public toilet. The FEHD has installed the CCTV cameras nearby to monitor the situation and make sure they're clean. We'll keep in view the situation and continue to follow up on this point. Next, Mr. Chan Pok-chi. Members, just 3 minutes each. Thank you, Chair. After introducing deodorizing technologies, I'd like the government to tell us how you assess the effectiveness, and also the attendance room. You've given us this example, but how many more toilets have this kind of attendance rooms? Now, on public toilets recently, I went to a number of them for a visit, and for the barrier access, the universal toilets in Canal Road, the motion sensor could not be installed. There is no estimation of the completion date of repair works. Now, as for the soap dispenser, on the first occasion, things didn't work. On the second occasion, when I visited the toilet, only 2 out of 7 dispensers worked. So it has to do with the design. Please make sure that the maintenance and repair works are sustained. Next, for the feedback, user feedback system in Southern Center, please make sure that it's not out of order. When no signal is received, you should know that the system is out of order. Right, about the odor issue, in the paper we refer to the ozone nanobubble technology. Earlier, the FEHD explained during a media interview that this technology could help kill off bacteria up to 99%, and that after installing this technology, there's been significant improvements in the odor problem. As for the air purification system involving the use of nanoplasma technology and nano-confined catalytic oxidation technology, we have independent testing agency to provide us with the reports. And also, according to on-site visits, we're able to reduce contaminants or bacteria by up to 95%. As for toilets and attendance rooms, we need to have regard to the site constraints. We've introduced improvements to a number of public toilets. For one that comes with site constraints, we provide some sort of solar-powered pavilion, or for example, say in Hampton is really remote, we at least provide somewhere with a shelter for attendants to take a break. Now, you mentioned the number of toilets. I have taken note. We'll go back and review the situation. Ms. Christine Fong. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the explanation. I acknowledge the FEHD's efforts in enhancing the toilet services and revamping the public toilets. Say the one in Cycle Market, it now looks much nicer. But when it comes to wet floor, I think the way to solve the problem is to provide more drainage points. Because after all, if you clean the toilets, you need to drain the water on the floor. And also about motion sensors in disabled toilets, you should increase the coverage and as well as accuracy. The other point is about public toilets in remote areas, in the outlying islands and the new territories. I think you should install CCTV cameras to protect passers-by or users. The recording serves no other purpose except for necessary reasons. It's not released in the public domain. Now, as for the smart solar-powered public toilet in remote areas, it's a breeding ground for mosquitoes and pests. So, will this toilet come with a function that tackle the mosquito problem? Say for the one near the reservoir, it's a breeding ground. Perhaps you should consider including the anti-mosquito function in this smart toilet. And also, Secretary mentioned during Chinese New Year there will be increased manpower for the cleaning of the toilet in Ham Tin. Now, I understand there are design capacity constraints of this toilet. Again, you will install CCTV cameras, and for toilets in country parks or remote areas, it will be very difficult for our cleaners. Will there be a sanction mechanism for those who don't keep the toilet clean? Now, drainage, of course, we understand the importance of keeping the floor dry. If members would like to show us a particular complaint, we'll be happy to follow up on the toilet in question. About installing motion sensors in disabled toilets, apart from the toilets in Canal Road, Wan Chai, as well as the one in PTI, Nai Chong, Tai Po, which took a longer time for the sensors to be installed. We haven't received other complaints. Now, the EMSD plans to install sensors for 40 disabled toilets this year, and we will keep in view the situation and further enhance the services. As for remote areas, I just explained our work in this regard. Now, you also mentioned installing CCTV cameras on the exterior of public toilets. We'll have regard to the actual experience and then gauge the need for CCTV cameras. We also need to have regard to the site constraints. About anti-mosquito work, we do have some anti-mosquito device installed in toilets. We should avoid having stagnant pools of water that could be used as breeding grounds by mosquitoes, and we will also take action to stamp out mosquitoes. Mr. Peter Shiu. In the recent years, public toilets in Hong Kong have seen significant improvements. On behalf of members of the public, I'd like to thank the Secretary. As mentioned, we don't want rusty nails, so please make sure the design is good enough. And about the various minor problems, now I don't know whether it's because of the more frequent visits by your staff in recent years. I see great improvements. In fact, with leveraging on technology, you don't need to send out your staff to public toilets. Say, just snap a few shots of the public toilets once a week or once every 2 weeks. The management will be able to check the toilets and then hold those accountable. And then you can improve the maintenance and repair of toilets.
Undersecretary, thank you for your feedback. If you have any observations, please pass them on to us. We will follow up on them. There may be rust because the toilets are relatively wet. The FEHD and other departments, such as the Architectural Services Department, will pay close attention to the situation. We do have a system for submitting works orders. If necessary, we can have orders for replacing components or to have mirror cabinets so as to prevent the issue from happening in the first place. As for your other question, whether we will have officers making reports for the surveillance of the department, the director can perhaps give supplementary information on the mechanism for reports being made as well as the work environment. I will ask the colleague to answer the relevant questions. Thank you, Mr. Xu, for your question. We ask frontline officers to take photos, and the photos are basically time blocked, and it also has a location marked. And when the site supervisors upload the photos onto the system, all of such data are recorded. We have public toilets having cameras installed being a bit of a problem because sometimes it's not convenient for people to take video cameras. Well, I think you can just have frontline officers take videos so as to give a fuller picture on what may be wrong. I believe the Bureau notes your comments. Mr. Yu Pak Lang. Thank you, Chair. I think, Chair, you will understand the hygiene of toilets, public toilets, represent an image, the image of a city. So it is important for us to maintain hygiene in public toilets. I can see the government is attaching great importance to this. Since 2019, we have the refurbishment program, we have updated hardware, introduced technologies, and according to the paper, 280 public toilets with high utilization rates have toilet attendant station there. But then, from what I remember, some public toilets with high utilization rates do not have toilet attendants. For example, the one in Pak Tam Chung public interchange, before one gets into the restricted area, it is a public toilet with a high utilization rate, as well as the public toilet at East Dam. Of course, I understand that the rate of usage will be different during, say, weekends or public holidays and weekdays. So, what are your criteria for stationing toilet attendants at public toilets? How will you define some public toilets that need toilet attendants? I understand about 30% of public toilets have toilet attendants stationed. Thank you, Chair. Undersecretary, we have talked about how 280 public toilets have toilet attendants stationed. The first criterion would be that they have a high utilization rate. Second is that we have been closely liaising with the Tourism Commission, and we have information from them. With relevant criteria, we station toilet attendants in certain public toilets. You mentioned 2 toilets that are in country parks, so they're under the management of Agriculture, Fisheries, and Conservation Department. Of course, they also have similar criteria they would have regard to the utilization rate, and we will coordinate with the AFCD on this. In the public toilets managed by the FEHD, they do have regard to relevant criteria. But then for toilets under the management of LCSC and AFCD, there may be some different criteria, but we will coordinate with the AFCD on this. Thank you. It is now time for me to speak. We have seen new technologies being introduced, and we have really made leaps and bounds in the provision of public toilet facilities. I want to ask in particular for accessible toilets for people with mobility issues. We really want to make sure we have proper installation of alarm systems. I believe when the alarm is triggered, the department will not know which public toilet is seeing this alarm. And I think there should be a surveillance system to make sure we are trying to rescue disabled persons when they need help. I also believe visitors need to have a good experience of public toilets. We also need to have family-friendly bathrooms. Many shopping malls have chairs installed in bathrooms for children. So perhaps in future for public toilets on hiking trails, we can have similar facilities installed. I also see more compassion given to toilet attendants. I believe in future with refurbished public toilets, we need to provide a good working environment for toilet attendants. And the Secretary, thank you, Chair. We actually feel the same about a lot of issues on accessible toilets. We would have one falling or one sitting there motionless for long. An alarm is triggered, and it's not just the people around the toilet that will be able to note the alarm. We also have toilet attendants. We are also looking into introducing technology so that we would have the department find out what is wrong. We do not have many of such incidents at the moment because we do not have many such systems in toilets at the moment, but with 40 toilets in future, we do understand we need to do more. We have facilities in bathrooms for diaper changing, and we will perhaps explore your suggestion to have some chairs for children in public toilets. We have restrooms for toilet attendants. We have lockers installed in the rooms. There are also some water dispensers. We do take into account the circumstances and provide as much as possible facilities needed by toilet attendants. All right, thank you, Secretary and the team for answering our questions. Let's move on to agenda item number 5, any other business. Members, please note that this Thursday during the afternoon, that is on the 12th of February, the LegCo president and panel members as well as non-members will visit the Lunar New Year Fair in Victoria Park to really support the economy. For those who have signed up, please note the notice via email sent by the Secretariat. If there's no other business, meeting adjourned. Thank you.